Sorry about that. There in the background. All right. I think we are back in business.
We streaming and ready to go?
Streaming and everything, so the account works much better now. Had to get kicked out and get back in.
Okay, I think we have
All my options are back.
I think we
Back
have all
to
the
quorum, and
board members.
everybody who was here, I think, is back. It was here, is back. Okay.
Okay. Okay, now I'll open the floor again for nominations for board members.
All right, Derek, I'd like to kick off, and it is my honor and great pleasure to nominate Derek Euler to be the chair of UIA.
Okay, we got a nomination by Brand. Is there a second?
Second,
Brent,
then fighting the forum.
Brand, okay. Okay, let's take a vote on that and then we can go through the other positions. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Okay. I'm going to make a motion on the vice chairs. Maybe I was thinking of doing them all at once. I guess somebody's got a problem with that. You can jump in and say something. But there we go. So I'd like to nominate Brant Hansen as the first vice chair, Brenda Moore as second vice chair, and maybe I can't really think of the last one. Let's do Zach Bloxham with Layton City as the third vice chair would be my nomination. And I'll ask for a second on that.
I'll second. Carolyn Lundberg.
Thank you, Mayor Lundberg. Is there any discussion on that? Is everybody okay with that? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to number 5, presentation of fraud risk assessment. Turn the time back over to Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. Let me share my screen once again. Once again, Roger, it's making you allow me to share my screen.
be good now.
Okay. This is a presentation of the fraud risk assessment. I'll make this fairly quick. We are slightly higher. Everything's the same with one exception this year. And frankly, I'd like to thank one of the board members, I believe it was Brenda last year, that told me to comply with one of the issues to have it basically says, is there a way, a fraud hotline? We ended up putting the state fraud hotline on our website to comply with this. So that was our change in score. Right now, if you look, the levels shown above are very low, low, moderate, high, very high, with very low being the best. Right now we're at 340, which would put us in the low category. Anything without an X are the things we don't have right now. The one that would put us into the very low category, it would be as easy as saying, our employees and elected officials required to annually commit in writing to abide by a statement of ethical behavior. If we were to do that, we would go to the very low. So I'm considering that for next year. Really, personally, as an accountant, I'm not sure how much that really deters fraud, but they seem to find that important. So that's something we're considering for next year. Any questions on the fraud risk assessment?
Jason, I'm gonna ask you a question. On the written policies, cash receipting and deposits, that seems like a pretty easy one. Maybe you guys don't have a ton of cash receipts. You probably don't, frankly, but the having written policies on cash receiving and deposits sounds pretty dang easy to
Yeah,
get
the policy work isn't that bad for any of these things. And actually, to tell you the truth, I do have a cash receipting policy. I probably could bring it just to the board. The thing is, it says, does it have a governing body adopted policy? So if you'd like, I'll get one of those together this year before we do the next assessment, and I'll bring that forward. That's not hard.
Maybe just a quick question. I think a year ago, we did do I think the governing body did adopt a procurement policy update. Is that your cash receipting just been administrative?
It's just been administrative. And to tell you the truth, when you say, do we take much cash? I think this is an organization where you're talking count on one hand the number of cash transactions in a year. And it's when a customer comes to the front desk and wants to pay their bill and insists they be allowed to pay their bill that way. That's really, I'm only aware of one that I'm aware of. There probably were more last year, but I was only aware of one happening last year. So we have very, very few.
Was it Roger?
It was not Roger. It was a customer who had our service who lived in Murray, who came to the front desk and said they wanted to pay cash. And it actually kind of screwed us up. They had to stop and come talk to me and say, how do we do this? So I'm like, okay, here's how we do this. So yeah.
Well, we have the vending machine, so there's cash going in there.
All right,
Yeah.
And frankly, now that you brought that up, Roger, I'm sure the vending machine will be audited next year. So
I don't think Ben's still on, maybe he is.
oh, if he's not, that's okay.
Is there any other questions for Jason on the fraud risk assessment? Okay, I do not believe we need to make a motion to accept it. Is that correct?
I'll look to Nicole. I'm not aware that you do. I think it has to be presented once per year to the governing body. I think that's all that's required.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jason. Moving on to number 6, you're still up with the financial update.
Okay, just 1 second. Let me call everything up. Getting there. There we go. Okay, here we go. Here is the financial update through December 31st, 2023. Let me make sure here's my talking points. Good. If you look at our revenue numbers, I think they look really good. If you'll remember, we've already done a $700,000 increase in budget with a budget revision last board meeting to these numbers. So I'm actually showing for the first 3 revenue numbers, I projected out revenue using what I think is conservative estimates through year end. You'll notice that I think business transport shown that it might be a little bit low. I don't think it'll be as low as shown there. There were some issues when I was looking at October's numbers. They had a couple credits in there I was unaware of that I projected going forward. I still think overall revenue on those 3 lines come the end of the year. I mean, it'll be very close to what we project. I think I've been conservative in what I've used. And I mean, it'll definitely be within less than 1% of where we're projecting. So I think that's pretty good. And we're showing good revenue for the year. Also, marketing expense, I'm showing we're projected to be $509,000 over for the year. I've been going through with Kim and figuring out what's causing the overage that we've had. And we have a problem in that about 220,000 of the 945,000 spent for the year is related to our marketing on Utopia projects, primarily what we have going on in Bozeman and Bountiful. So that needs to be moved out of UIA. And when that's moved out of UIA, we're going to maybe have $100,000 overage I'll be projecting for the end of the year in UIA. The $100,000 overage, frankly, part of this projected overages is due to a strategic campaign to combat recent negative press. Kim has reacted to some of the negative press that we've been seeing out there. And there has been some cost, but I'm thinking it will be, I mean, I think we'll still be fairly close to budget. Like I said, about $100,000 is where I'm projecting to be over there. If you'll notice network ops expense, I also show as being 659,000 over. But that's payments we're making to Utopia that they're not expect anything above on that line that we make. It's related to revenue we have coming in, and as our revenue comes up, we have more expense. Anything that's over there, we'll probably take out of, I'm going to recommend taking out of our distribution to Utopia because they shouldn't need that cash to make their payments to the cities. So that should net to zero at the end of the year, and I think that will be good. Last thing I wanted to talk about is capital projects right now are projected to come in higher than budget. This is partially due to the increased cost of generating more revenue than budget. So, like I said, I didn't ever adjust some of these numbers to take that into account, but we are going to have more revenue than we originally budgeted to have. And I'm really always looking at what our bond people are going to think. And they'll be okay if we go over on this a little bit and come for bonds a little earlier if our revenue's higher. So that's part of what we're looking at here. But we're also noting some inflationary pressure due to increased construction cost over the past few years. And we're reviewing our current projects and considering changing the expected payback of future projects to compensate for some overages that we have seen in construction. That's all I have for the financial updates. Are there any questions from the board?
Jason, remind me on your capital project overage, is that the revenues, is that one-time money or are we still using bond money on that stuff?
We're still using bond money on it.
Okay.
That's overage from what what happened was we issued $30 million. Well, I guess $30 million is how much ended up in our construction account in bonds. And we said we thought we'd spend $20 million this year. And that's kind of how I've kept my projections for the years to be at 20 million. So any overage, we could dip into the 10 million for next year is what we're looking at. And so that's what we're looking at. And I mean, we're having to definitely look at our spend right now and plan for the next issue and what's going on there.
Maybe just for me too, is your capital project overage inflation, is it mostly labor or is it material?
I'd say most of it's labor. But there is material overages in there also. I mean, it's what we're looking at. So
yeah, I think materials has gone up with inflation. I think labor's gone up more than inflation. There's a lot of demand in this industry right now for construction resources. So we're getting hit a little bit double, I think, on the labor side. Not double the amount, but just inflation and increased demand for resources out there.
Okay, is there any other questions for Jason? Okay, if not, we'll turn the time over to Roger for.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, I forgot I do have more on this slide. I'm sorry to do that. I also have the revenue charts that I have every month. Let me show you the revenue charts.
Charts are good.
Yeah. And here I think you're seeing the combined monthly revenue for Utopia and UIA. You'll notice back in October, November, we actually had some billing adjustments that I spoke about a little bit earlier that were here, that were negative. But our December number, which is shown here, that's the final number. Our December number actually is looking very, very good. And we're over 4 million combined revenue for the two entities coming in each month. And that's very, very good. That's a good target. Our revenue numbers are still strong. Here's just for UIA. If you look at the revenue that's came in versus the bond issuances, this light blue line might be a little harder to see on here, the top line. That's the last bond issue we did in fiscal year 2024. As you can see, our revenue has been, it's been increasing. It's been increasing at a very good clip, and we're up over 3.2 we're up over 3.2, up around 3.3 million per month. So that's, as I've been saying in everything, revenue growth is very, very good.
I remember when we were celebrating, like, you can't believe we crossed $1 million of monthly revenue at UIA. I remember Kurt was pretty excited about that. So, send him an updated slide. He'd be excited to see the progress we've made.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
That's
Okay.
all I had, Derek.
All right, is there any other questions for Jason? Yep. Okay, if not, we'll turn the time over to you, Roger, for a network update.
And so first thing I wanted to bring up on the update is the attack campaign. So we get a lot of questions about this. Initially, we saw this show up in the form of TV ads that were on different channels. And that was, we were like, what in the world is this? It's kind of throwing out old information, just kind of this anti-government, government's going to do these bad things to you and in your internet. And we just laugh because we're like, what, they're going to throttle you? I mean, that was kind of some of the accusations. Like, at the end of the day, we have the fastest speed. They're all unlimited. We have no contracts. Like, all the things are kind of trying to create paranoia over the private companies since the private companies, we love the private companies, the local guys that work with us. It's the big incumbent, big telco companies that are the ones guilty of the bandwidth caps and overages and throttling and zero rating and all the other stuff that's out there. But anyways, we saw those come through. It's run through one of these dark money organizations called the Domestic Policy Caucus, with roots in Minneapolis area and also DC, where somebody will fund them and then they'll go run a campaign in their behalf, and they can basically keep separation, keep anonymity to whoever's funding it. We saw that come and go, and we talked about that a little bit. What we're now seeing is a ramping up of that, but they've moved more to flyers. So now we've got people getting these kind of full page flyers being mailed to them in a lot of different cities. We've seen them hit some of the Utopia cities. We've seen them target Bountiful and Harriman. And so it seems like maybe are trying to get a little bit of ahead of us and maybe potential expansion areas. Obviously, Bountiful's already done deal. We're already have customers there, and we're building that out quickly. In member cities, it's like there's everything's going great. They're built out. We're adding customers. There's not really anything to do other than try to create some sort of anti-utopia sentiment in the marketplace. This, kind of our best guess at what they're trying to accomplish. Whenever we see an article, we've seen a lot of articles kind of pick up on this, and we've actually last week we had a press event to kind of get a little bit more of our message out there. That was some of the marketing spend was on a campaign of the Utah, like YOU, Utah, selected by or preferred by Utah. There's a community effort owned by the cities in partnership, collaboration, local providers, all the good stuff that we are. And so we've been getting articles from different news outlets just on the campaign itself against us, and then also in our response to that campaign. But in all of these, what's been really nice is you can go see the public response to these, that we're not feeding, or we're just kind of watching that happen as people are commenting, sharing on social media. And overwhelmingly, we're seeing our customers and partners and people out there who can see right through this campaign to say, hey, this is just, whether it's Comcast, CenturyLink, or even out-of-market entities like AT&T, we don't know which of those are specifically funding what, but people are assuming it's those companies behind the campaign, just to try to prevent our success and growth. But they're saying, hey, this is, we love Utopia. It's great. It's the best service. And it's been good to know that, it doesn't seem like they're convincing anybody of anything. It was put out there. So they did to some extent hire a local representative, Greg Hughes, which many of you probably know, was in the legislature. And he's made some comments. So a lot of the information we know about it is kind of what he's told the media. He hasn't, I haven't talked to him directly, but he's been interviewed. And he said some things about, well, it's $1 million or more of campaign. So they've got a lot of money they're spending on this. And we don't think they've spent all that. So I think we're going to continue to see this. But so far, we don't see any actual damage or problem of it, just that we are responding and keeping an eye on it. But always, we don't like these campaigns. I mean, I had a full head of hair when it started. Okay, not really, I shaved it, but anyways, it's like I said, something to be aware of. You may be getting questions about this. Even our employees are just like, my neighbors are seeing this, and what's going on? Are we the bad guys? It's like, of course they know we're not. Everything is good, but it's something that a lot of people are seeing, and we just need to be sure that we know what's going on and have good response to all of that. And like I said, what we're seeing out there is that people see through it pretty quickly, and we still have great support. I mean, this was our best year we've ever had. We put on, our net growth of customers through all of our networks and in our partnerships was just shy of 10,000 net growth, which, when we're sitting at about 62,000 subscribers, was a phenomenal year of growth, and it just seems to keep accelerating. And so we're not too worried about it, but cautious in keeping tabs on things. So are there any questions about the campaign or any of that that's out there? Have you guys gotten questions or feedback in your cities? We're happy to address anything. Like if your councils want information from us, if you want even just a general update on Utopia, let me know, and we're happy to come and do a presentation, like or be at Bountiful on Tuesday, kind of giving them an update on their project. But in the past, we've kind of tried to get out to cities once or twice a year, but sometimes the board member is just like, no, we're good, we're covered, and as a board member, we're happy for you to be that interface with your cities. But I'm also happy to come out, and Nicole and others from our team. It's something we're happy to do for you. The other side of the update we like to do is looking at our subscriber numbers, and so we included that. It's a regular thing where we include now our subscriber report in the packet. So I would just kind of refer you to that. I'll go ahead and pull it up just to quickly show you. Let's see here. So as I scroll down towards the bottom, we have this organized where we have at the front, we like to kind of show our residential take rates. That's a number that a lot of people point to. Obviously, newer projects tend to be really low, and as we grow, it takes us a few years to get people out of contracts, and even just to get the message out there. And so we try to asterisk those that are kind of in that early growth mode still. But things are trending well across the board. Santa Clara, I think some people might look at that, and Jarrett, I know you're on here. That's one where we did have the competitors go in and lock down a lot of people into contracts. So we expect that to come up, but there's other things we're expecting to ramp up some of the marketing down there. And we also have a provider down there that's working through our service provider RFP process to get onboarded. So we'll have another local provider down there that should help us. But we also have a lot in the queue down there. We have a lot of the new development that is coordinated with us on their builds, and they are growing pretty well. So that'll be a good project. We'll have good take rates. It's just lagging a little bit, but we're not leaving that alone. We're gonna push hard down there. And everywhere else, we see take rates going up. You'll see occasional blips. We had a little blip in Murray, if you were to look at their specific chart. Sometimes we'll have a group of homes or an apartment complex or something that's a bundle of customers that we'll lose. And then we worry about that, like, hey, are we losing? Is there some new competitive option? But usually the next month we see it coming back up, and we've over time seen all of those little blips whenever we take a little dip somewhere come back. So they're just in, one-time situations that we might lose a bulk deal on or something like that. But overall, we have our summary charts here with availability is basically where you can get the service, how many passings we have, subscribers continue to go up. Like I said, we're just over 62,000 across all of these systems. You have your growth by city in here. These are kind of bigger versions just so you can see a little more detail and compare city to city on how many subscribers we have and what that growth looks like. And then for each city, we haven't added Bountiful in. We're only a month in with subscribers there. But as we have a few months of growth, we start giving you this city specific charts that you can dig into. Feel free to share those with your councils. We're trying to be a lot more transparent than we've been in the past by providing this data. And if there's any questions, sometimes we'll find errors in the charts or data, but try to get those cleaned up. So just let us know if there's any questions you have related to your cities or these reports. If there's anything else you want to see. And then the only other asterisk I have out there is we're probably going to have an update at some point that improves our numbers, not artificially, but just in the way that we count them. We have a lot of places where maybe we count it as one fiber connection, and yet that one fiber connection might be 200 or 300 units behind that fiber connection. And so it ends up hurting our numbers a little bit because it statistically looks like we have a 2% take rate when in reality we have a 100% take rate in an area. And so especially in our cities with a lot of NPU properties, like the West Valley and Midvale, we know that those numbers are skewed down because of that. Partly, I mean, part of it is just we don't have as good a take rate in some cities, but they look worse than they actually are, is my point. And so we're going to try to true up some of that data. It will see some improvement in take rate, but it won't actually be improvement of customers or reality. The revenues are law, dollars in, we know, but it gets a little tricky. Sorry, I triggered the thumbs up thing there in my Zoom. But the calculating available households and connections gets a little bit, there's a lot of different situations we run into that skews the data a little bit, but it's pretty good data. And obviously the trends are all very good and we're not slowing down. Demand is up. I think I mentioned earlier, we're not seeing competitive options out there, that are actually impacting the market. So we see 5G, we see pushes from T-Mobile and AT&T for home internet over 5G cellular networks with different frequencies they've added in, and they've got door-to-door teams, and we've seen a lot of campaigns and a lot of noise out there. But once people have a fiber connection, they're like, why would I go with anything else? And if they do switch, they often will switch back because it's not just an advertised speed. We just have this solid reliability with these dedicated connections that is a different experience than what people get with any form of wireless and definitely any form of DSL or cable. So we're still leading the market, and we have the fastest speeds still in the state at 10 gigabits. We're considering launching a mid-tier that's between gig and 10 gigs, so something like a 2 gig, just to kind of bridge it and also bring down the price of 10 gig a little bit. We may need to have a rate increase on the wholesale side of things, just to kind of get us where we need to be from a bond, revenue and debt ratio perspective. It could be anywhere from $1 to $5 is kind of the range we're looking at. That's on the wholesale side, so we don't know what that would amount to on the retail, what a provider might impact. You look at when we raised rates last, it was really never. We established some new products and tiers over time, but we haven't actually gone and applied increases to anything for at least 10 years. So we may have just a couple dollars of increase in there to just hit the revenue ratios we need for financing purposes. But I don't know that there's likely that might just come through as a pass through, or better yet, it may even be absorbed. But we're in those discussions right now. But like I said, it would just be a couple of dollars at most. If you look at that as a percentage, you'd be like, well, over so many years and inflationary adjustments and all this other stuff. I mean, if it was a 5% increase or something in the total bill for a customer, we're still behind what any of the other providers have done as far as Comcast or anybody else. They do almost annual rate increases. And so we're a little bit behind on doing that sort of thing, but we also don't want to raise rates if we don't have to. We'd love to keep rates down and competitive and get more people on the network to benefit from it. So we're constantly trying to balance that. That's what I got from my network update. Any questions on that or any of our reports or customer growth? Oh, one other thing is West Haven is almost there. That's a project, a city build out that we've been working on for a bit. We've been held up a little bit with some canal crossing permits. BLM has been a little bit challenging to work with, but it's mostly built, yet we have no areas that can sign up for services, but we're very close. And that city will be coming on shortly, and then we expect some pretty strong growth. The demand is definitely there, and they're right next door to other cities that we've been very successful with West Point and Syracuse nearby, and we're doing very well in those cities. So we expect to do similarly well in West Haven. Okay, any other questions?
I got a question. Who was streaming on Paramount with the Utopia connection and actually got to watch the game? Because I missed 3/4 of it because they just sat and spun.
So I think yesterday was a good day for us because a lot of broadband providers struggled. Super Bowl streaming is the biggest broadband event of the year now. Now that so many people are streaming, we've seen that where I live, it was completely down. Unfortunately, I don't live on the Utopia connection. I moved there before I got this job. I live in Lehigh, and it's a fiber network, but it didn't keep up with the demand, and thousands of homes in Traverse Mountain there in Lehigh were down, and it just didn't work. There was a lot of angry. Anyways, I'm interested too in that question of anyone else out there see trouble?
On my videos on.
I had problems with Paramount too. And I think it was Paramount. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the connection because I went to somebody else's house to watch a game on Utopia and they were fine on Fubo. So
it was the Paramount streaming service that was struggling.
That's what I was having problems with. Yeah.
It's a tough time. I mean, I don't know how you test for that, right? And everybody gets on at the same time. It can be taxing. But we were had our knock watching. I was like, guys, what do the charts look like? Are we maxing out anywhere? Are we seeing any problems? And they're like, everything was running smoothly, at least as far as Utopia and our fiber network is concerned. We build our network. A lot of people build their network to manage how congestion happens and make sure the important services work and the other ones get throttled and all that other stuff. We build our network to make sure there's headroom on all connections. So if everybody's, at those peak moments, we still have plenty of headroom in our capacity. And if we ever approach that, then we make upgrades in our network to make sure there's never congestion. That we can't solve problems upstream with Paramount or Apple or whoever may be on the streaming side of things, but we can at least make sure our part of the equation is taken care of.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Roger. Is there anything else anybody needs to, excuse me, bring up to front of the board? Okay, if not, I'll just real quick, one more time, thank Jason and his staff. Did a bunch of financial stuff, and obviously things are going really well, and we appreciate Roger and everything that you guys are working on. So good work. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We got a motion by Brant,
I'll second.
second by Brenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hey, thank you.
Don't miss any meetings, Derek.